This program is brought to you in part by the partners and friends of Creflo Dollar Ministries.
The 2024 Grace Life Conference is already in the works. Our mentality, ministers and leaders, and youth conference will all take place during Grace Life. Register now through October 20th to receive a one-time 10% discount on your entire order in the Dome Digital Store during Grace Life 2024. Just scan the QR code, text Grace Life to 51555, or visit CrefloDollarMinistries.org. We'll see you in July.
This is your world, so let's vow to make it a better place. Let every heart that needs to know your love is here to stay. Oh, it's time we live a new life. Oh, let us love shine bright in you. We're saved by His grace, so we embrace your love today. We are changed.
Welcome to today's broadcast. Now, hasn't it been an amazing week? We've been going through the sessions from Grace Life Conference 2023, diving into the grace that was made available to us through Christ Jesus. Now, today, we're going to see the message from the last two Grace Life 2023 speakers, Dr. Mimi Haddad and Inky Johnson. Now, Mimi is up first. She spoke at the women's session and is best known for her profound teaching on biblical equality. Now, men, you need to hear this too. She gives new revelation to what God meant when He said He would make a helper for man in the form of a woman. Watch this.
And so from Genesis to Revelation, we find women who gave moral, spiritual, physical, and intellectual leadership despite human prejudice. This is so much the case, and I'm going to pose a challenge to you right now. Find one woman in the Bible who did what was right in God's eyes and who was completely submissive to male culture. She ain't there. She ain't there. I mean, think about this. We have two books in the Old Bible, Esther and Ruth, named after women. Doesn't happen in the ancient world. In fact, sociologists and anthropologists are scratching their heads about so much in the Bible. Esther and Ruth is one example. In a male-centered world, Esther challenged her husband, who was a king. That could have happened, right? And Ruth and Naomi travel to find their kinsman redeemer, Boaz. And Ruth initiates romantic overtures, very much outside the standard of it's the man who does the asking. But then you have the Song of Songs woman who has some romantic interests, and she's not going to be quiet about it. They're behaving like people, like human beings. And then there's the Proverbs 31 woman, right? We don't even know about her husband. Her name and her achievements are celebrated in the gates of Jerusalem. So people coming in inside, it's sort of like, I mean, it's like social media or what used to be newspapers, right? When you walk through the city, there she is, the Proverbs 31 woman, outstanding leader in Israel, terrific businesswoman. We think of Jael, and we're going to talk about some of these women later. But these women were not only human, but they had such extraordinary courage when you consider what they did. And that's how God introduces woman in the next slide, Genesis 2. Now, the only not good in a perfect world, and this is straight from the Bible, is Adam's aloneness. Adam cannot really complete the divine commission of tending to the garden without an etzer kenegdo in Hebrew, which means a strong rescuer. Now, our English Bibles, mostly run by male translation teams until recently, and I'm happy to say CBE has its own, they translated this amazing Hebrew word as help. It means, it comes from two root words, to be strong and to rescue. This is why we have Esther. This is why we have Ruth. And this is why we have the other women you will meet. Now, they translated it this way, and it's used, this word etzer is used 21 times in the Old Testament, most often for God's rescue of Israel. I lift up my eyes to the hill where my etzer comes, my rescuer, the maker of heaven and earth. Now, that's not to say that women are more divine than men, but God realized for them to complete their work representing God in the world, the two of them had to work together. And this is really what the humanitarians are saying to us today. Unless you have women working beside men in every corner of the world, unethical practices rise. Productivity goes down. You are needed at the leadership tables in every field. You weren't created to be a subordinate. You were created because your moral rescue is needed in businesses today. Your moral rescue is needed in science and medicine and law. In law. Because we see things men don't, because we're granular, and we cannot leave ourselves in the back room. We're needed at those stages, not because we're strident and want power and need control, but because we recognize that without us, the projects don't go as well. Now, not only, so God says, okay, Adam, alone's bad, need etzer. What happens next? He goes to, okay, go to sleep. He rests. The rest we talked about yesterday. He rests, and she is taken out of his side. Because, and when he wakes up and meets her and says, ooh, I like your hair. He wakes up and he sees her, and it's the first human words in the Bible. The first human words we have in the Bible, in Genesis. At last, this is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. I'll call you woman because you're from me. And it is a declaration of their unity, their oneness of substance created in God's image for moral decision-making, and created from his body to share that one flesh relationship of marriage and to work beside him in the garden. If you go to Christian, you look for a good Christian book, it's always about marriage and these sorts of things. Often they talk about our differences, but the Bible celebrates their similarities, their oneness of substance, because they have one project together to govern the world in God as God's representatives. And this is so beautiful. And you wonder why it didn't last. Adam and Eve rebel against God. Each of them make a distinct decision on their own that they will eat of that one thing in a world of total bliss and total provision. There's just one thing they can't do, and then they do it. They were deceived. Eve was deceived by the serpent. And Adam made a bad choice. And this rebellion creates a disharmony and a rupture in their relationship with God, one another, themselves, and the rest of the garden. It is a chaos that sets in, and God says, woman, your desire will be for your man, and he will rule over you. And the tragic thing, in my opinion, about this is that in a fallen world, the one we live in now, this dominance, which some churches say is biblical. It's part of the sin. It wasn't God's recommendation. It wasn't the way they lived in a perfect world. It is part of the fallen world, which Jesus came to upend. But when we think of it as the norm, what does that do? When we say it's how it should be, we are diminishing women created in God's image. What slander that is. She was created in God's image for shared governance. It kind of puts a cloak over woman, what she's supposed to be. And the second that happens, in the very same chapter, a verse later, God said, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to send a redeemer. And the woman will bear the child, the Christ. It's the Holy Spirit and a woman, and as Sojourner Truth, man ain't have nothing to do with it. Okay, Sojourner. Man ain't had nothing to do. What was lost through Eve was supremely provided through the Holy Spirit and Mary. And it's such a beautiful truth. So despite their sin, God redeems humanity. Christ will come through a woman. She will bear the child, and he will crush evil. And this Christ will crush the serpent's head, and woman will be free once again.
Listen, what did I tell you? That was so powerful. Women are strong rescuers, and they work alongside us men to bring the balance, dude. I know Taffy has been my strong rescuer on many occasions, personally and professionally. Now, next up is Inky Johnson. He is a former college football player who was headed to the NFL before he was seriously injured during a game. He spoke to the men about how to triumph through adversity. His testimony is so powerful. Let's take a look.
I come into my junior year, I was a projected top 30 draft pick as a corner. Had my paperwork from the league. Come out, first football game, execute, get the victory, everything is going great. Second game, playing against Air Force, fourth quarter of the game, 2 minutes left, game is basically over. We break the huddle, Gerard Mayo called quarters coverage. As we're walking back to our positions, I say, bro, I hope they throw the ball my way. Man, I can make this tackle. We get ready for the game against Florida next week. We can go ahead and close this chapter. Play starts to unfold. Quarterback is dropping back, tapping the ball, looking in my direction. I'm looking at him. He releases it to a receiver. He catches it. I go to make a routine tackle. Something I knew how to do 10, 20, 30 different ways. I've been doing since I was a kid. At the point of contact, as soon as I hit him, it seemed as if every breath in my body left. My body went completely limp. I fell to the ground. I blacked out. I never experienced anything like that before. When my eyes opened, my teammates ran over to me and they said, Ink, get up, let's rock, let's go. I said, I can't. I said, what you mean you can't, man? You're a captain. You always get up. Let's go. You nurse your injury after the game. I said, I can't move. There's a shot going from the crown of my head to the bottom of my feet. I couldn't feel anything. One of the scariest moments of my life. The shock eventually left, but it stayed in my right arm and hand. Remember, they brought the spine board out. They put me on the spine board. They're wheeling me off the field. We get to the ambulance. My father's standing there. I say to my father, Pops, I got him, right? I put it on him, right? He said, yeah, son, but I think you got the worst part of this one. They get me to the hospital. They say, Ink, we'll take you over, run a couple tests, put you in a room, sure everything will be fine. It's bald. Things happen. They take me, they run their tests, they put me in a room. My mother comes in. My mom, old school, man. Tough as nails. Comes in the room, cracks a joke, kisses me on my forehead, says, Ink, you'll be fine. It's bald. Things happen. You'll be good. She goes to exit the room. I watch her exit the room, and she makes a left. When she makes the left, I flip my head back to the left. And when I flipped my head back to the left, I remember seeing the lead doctor. He was running in my direction, and he was screaming. And he was saying, guys, get in here. We got to rush this kid back to emergency surgery. He's about to die. And I remember saying to him, like, die? You talking about, like, die away from me or die? Like, man, what happened? He said, when we looked at the test, we noticed you ruptured your subclavian artery, your main artery, and you're bleeding internally. He said, we got to rush you back and take the main vein out of your left leg, plug it into your chest in order to save your life. He said, I guarantee you, you won't be alive in the morning. You'll bleed out. I said, let's go. And the next morning I woke up, I had 6 incisions down my left thigh, 1 incision across the left side of my neck, 1 across the right, twice through my right ribs, cut out my right pec, bottom of my armpit to the bottom of my hand, 350 staples in my body. They had bandaged me from my neck down to my knees. They said when we went in to repair the artery, we noticed you had torn the nerves in your brachial plexus. I said, what's that? They said it's the nerve roots that come from your spine that control shoulder, arm, hand, fingers. They said, think about it this way, Ink. When you plug something into a wall, that's how the brachial plexus goes into the spine. But once you rupture them, it can't go back in. It said, so we hate to inform you, man, but the goal here is to get you to ADL. I said, what's ADL? They said, assisted daily living. They said, if we can get you to a point with your right arm that you can go to a grocery store and put a bag under your arm, that'll be a plus for us. Game of football, probably done. And I'm in the moment like, no way. Like, God, man, I've been working for this a long time, man. Like, let me make it, get the contract, help my family, then we can. I'm like, God, we right here. My mother and my father at the hospital. Now, my whole life, my mother really despised my father. Like, even when they were trying to transfer me to schools, they couldn't really be in the same room or the same environment for too long. It was like a Rottweiler and a Chihuahua. My mother was the Rottweiler. I don't know how it be. My pop might look in and see me, see my mom. He's like, boy, I'm going to catch you on. He's like, Ink, I ain't coming in there. Right? They couldn't be in the same environment. And for the first time in a long time, my mother and my father was in the same room. Like the foolishness was cut out. Right? That's the beauty of adversity and opposition sometimes. It trims the fat. Right? That's why my favorite quote is King's quote that says, you judge the true character and caliber of a person, not by what they stand in times of comfort and convenience. You judge the true character and caliber of a person by what they stand in times of challenge and controversy. Right? The great thing about adversity and opposition, it trims the fat. And so at the time, they didn't know if they was going to have to amputate my arm. They didn't know if they was going to have to amputate the back. They didn't know any of that. And we're sitting in a room, and I'm lying on the edge of my bed, and I'm sitting there, and I got my head to the ceiling. And my mother is lying on a little cot. And my father is lying on the floor, looking up at the ceiling. And I heard my father say, Ruby, my mother's name. He said, I'm sorry. He said, you did a great job raising that boy. And my mother started crying. I was like, God, I don't know what you doing, but boy, this is a miracle already. Yo, what you doing? Then my father says, Ink, I'm gonna come and stay with you, man, for the next 30 days or however long you need me. So however long you need me, man. I hadn't been under the same roof as my father probably more than 2 days. He said, I'm gonna drop everything in Atlanta and I'm gonna come and stay and dedicate all my attention and energy to helping you, son. Whatever you need. This was big for me. And every single day I would keep up with my same routine. I would go to discipleship. I would go to rehab for my arm. I would go to my different classes. And my father would be with me. So I had a mother that came up, just to preface it, I had a mother that was crazy about God. In church, Sunday, Monday, whenever they would let her in, she in there. My father, he didn't really want to hear that. Because he had a mother that he lost as a teenager, and then he had me when he was 16. And his mother was all he ever had. And so when he lost his mother, and then something happens to his son, who was at the time prized possession, my son gonna make it, my guy, this is my dude, ain't gonna do it, and then something happens, it's almost a shot to the ego. And every single day, he would take me to everything except discipleship. He would never go in. He would stand outside of the room. I would be like, Pop, you want to come in and hear the word? Nah, I'm cool. I'm going to stand out here. And every single night, me and my roommates, we were routine. We were athletes. And so from the time we came on campus to the time we left, we were routine. Wake up a certain time, work out a certain time, go to class a certain time. We were routine. And so even when my father came in the house, it was still a certain level of routine. We would pray around the same time. I'm talking about every single day. And my father was with me until one day he went into the training room, and I'm talking about my father, 6'3", 250. And I literally watched the stress of the moment take him down to where my father was literally walking around and he was humpbacked. From the adversity, opposition, and stress of the moment. I watched when he walked in our door, walked up strong, upright. Then I watched him halfway through the journey of the first month, and my father's back was leaning over. And when I would go get rehab on my arm, he would go in and sit on the training table, and he would say, man, can I get a heat pack on my back? They would put a heat pack on his back. They would stretch him until one day he laid on the table. He was like, man, can I get a heat pack on my back? They put a heat pack on his back. They took that one off. He said, can I get another one? They said, we're not sure if you need another. He was like, please give me another one. My back is tight. They put another one on his back. They took that one up. He said, can I please get another one? They put another one on his back. And when they pulled it up, I'll never forget, some of his skin came with it. Because he was carrying a burden that wasn't his to carry in the first place. He was fighting a battle that wasn't his to fight in the first place. And every single night, my father would circle around and he would go to our rooms. He would go to Ramon's room. Hey, Ramon, you need something? Ramon said, nah, Pops, I'm good. Hey, Mayo, you need something? Nah, Pops, I'm good. Hey, Ink, you need something? Nah, Pops, I'm good. And on the 29th day, I'll never forget, he coming around doing his rounds. Hey, Ramon, you good? Yeah, Pops, I'm good. Mayo, you good? Yeah, Pops, I'm good. And I'm on the side of my bed. I'm on my knee. I grew up with my grandma, right? My grandma used to get on the side of her bed and pray. I'm on the side of the bed, and I'm about to pray, and my father walks in, says, hey, Ink, you good? I say, yes, sir, I'm good. And he goes to walk off. And he comes back in the door frame. And he said, yo, Ink. I was like, yes, sir. He said, man, you know that God you pray to? I was like, yes, sir. So you know that God I take you to discipleship about? I was like, yes, sir. He said, man, if that God can help you handle this situation the way you handling it, he said, son, I want to give my life to Christ. And my father got saved. My father had a wife and 2 daughters. A household got corrected. And so cats come up to me every single week, man, and they say to me, hey, Ink, if you could change what happened to you, would you change it? Hey, Ink, you said you would never change what happened to you. If you could be in the NFL right now making millions of dollars, like you wouldn't change that? Like, man, you got a paralyzed right arm and hand. What about the atrophy? I'm like, man, I wouldn't change it for nothing in the world. And they always say to me, why? I'm like, bro, if I had to put it on a scale and weigh NFL contract, my father's salvation, we got the real contract. Yeah.
Grace Life Conference 2023 Homecoming featured 3 power-packed days focused on celebrating the life of grace. Creflo and Taffy Dollar were joined by special guests, topping off a weekend filled with revelation. Experience all 9 sessions for a love gift of $50 or more for CDs or $60 or more for DVDs. Celebrate grace. Call the number on your screen, scan the QR code, or visit CrefloDollarMinistries.org and click eStore while supplies last.
Well, listen, I am so glad you joined me these last 2 weeks. The messages have truly been life-changing. I want you to remember that this journey isn't over with the last session today. I will continue to preach the message of grace here on the broadcast from the pulpit and with our morning confession time. Right now, I want to encourage you to take advantage of early bird registration for the 2024 Grace Life Conference. Remember, you'll get a 10% discount to use in the Dome Digital Store at the World Dome during the 2024 Grace Life Conference. That's pretty good, guys. So register now. The information is on the screen, and I'll see you right here in the international city of College Park, Georgia, next July.
The 2024 Grace Life Conference is already in the works. Our Mentality, Ministers and Leaders, and Youth Conference will all take place during Grace Life. Register now through October 20th to receive a one-time 10% discount on your entire order in the Dome Digital Store during Grace Life 2024. Just scan the QR code, text Grace Life to 51555, or visit CrefloDollarMinistries.org. We'll see you in July.
I pray that this broadcast blessed you today. I want you to pray about sowing a financial seed into this ministry. I also want to extend a special thanks to those of you who have remained our loyal partners, supporters, and friends. Your financial support goes a long, long way. Your donations help equip us with what we need to send this broadcast all over the world. And when you give to this ministry, you partner with us to reach people everywhere who are hurting and in need of the revelation of God's grace and love.
If God has placed it on your heart to support the vision of this ministry to reach the world with the gospel of grace, you may call in to make your financial donations or log on to CrefloDollarMinistries.org. God bless you.
We're back. Are you ready for Change Experience 2024? Creflo Dollar is hitting the road for Change Experience West Coast in February and Change Experience East Coast in April. It'll all end with Grace Life, the reunion at the World Dome in July. Mark your calendars now. Text Change 2024 to 51555. Scan the QR code on your screen or visit CrefloDollarMinistries.org today.
Thank you, partners and friends. Your love and financial support makes it possible to bring this message into millions of homes all across the globe. The preceding program was brought to you in part by the partners and friends of Creflo Dollar Ministries.